Imagine pouring your heart and soul into a cause only to see that nonprofit struggle to make an impact. Well, sometimes, despite the dedication and the passion, nonprofits fail not because their mission isn't worthwhile, but because they lack a very crucial element: strategic decision making. You see, the difference between success and failure often lays in the ability to plan, adapt, and execute an effective strategy. Hi, I'm Teresa Clark, and I am a seasoned CPA with over 25 years of experience serving nonprofits. I've served both internal to the organization as a CFO and external as an auditor. And so I bring a very unique perspective to your financial journey. If you'd like to learn more, you can jump on my website at teresaclark.com. One of the greatest examples I can think of is a outreach ministry that I saw firsthand move from a kind of a resource model. So it really was working in a way that when a woman was facing an unplanned pregnancy, she might arrive at the outreach center and would receive things to help her. Maybe there's some resources to help with transportation, or there was diapers or formula. But this ministry was realizing that there were others in the community doing the same thing, and that really they just weren't seeing an impact in support to these women. Well, they changed, they moved, they relocated to be right on a bus route, but also very close to a university. And they began to offer medical services, really changing the way they did what they did, not stopping the resource services, but adding this intersection with women earlier on in their journeys to be able to offer a lot more support and ultimately be more effective in reaching the women they were called to serve. So, just as for profit businesses go through a life cycle, nonprofits also go through cycles that start with kind of the startup, move into growth, maturity, and can lean towards failure unless they sort of reinvent themselves, reboot, and go back to another growth stage. So, strategic decision making is needed throughout the lifetime of a nonprofit. We don't ever get to hit autopilot. So, ironically, this is really common that after that maturity phase that we often see nonprofits kind of crest the hill and then go down in a decline. So, at some point, every nonprofit needs to face the decision about whether they need to renew their purpose or if they're starting to face decline. So, whatever stage your nonprofit's in, I just want to remind you that the absence of this strategic decision making can actually lead to failure. One of the primary results of not having strategic decision making scheduled and intentional is that a misalignment starts to happen between the organization's activities, what it's doing, and its mission, what it wants to accomplish. So, when nonprofits don't make those deliberate strategic decisions, they actually find themselves pursuing projects that don't align with their core purpose. I like to think about it as a funnel. We have a million organizations doing a million different things, and a clear strategy, a clear mission, clear goals become the funnel that we put every idea and opportunity through to make sure that it doesn't lead to wasted resources, confusion, loss of focus, and no impact. Another example happens when we don't adapt to changing needs. This one hits close to home. Before I launched my consulting business, I had dreams of helping nonprofits. I was serving in a large nonprofit, having a great impact. I'd been there for almost 20 years. And I started to have visions of what it would look like to serve so many more amazing people doing amazing things. And I really took those ideas and put them up on a shelf until COVID happened. You see, during that time, we had to adapt to changing needs, and many people were jumping on Zoom calls and trying to find help and supporting one another. And I found myself in a room full of leaders asking financial questions, and they were trying to figure out how, in this unprecedented time, they would navigate the financial decisions ahead of them. Well, just like in COVID, so often in a nonprofit, we need to adapt so that we can meet the needs of those we're called to serve and make those strategic decisions. Data, knowing what the facts are, can really help improve strategic decision making. So, if you're on a board of a nonprofit and you don't have an idea about the effectiveness of what's happening, or you can't measure quantitative or qualitatively that what you're doing is actually achieving your desired result, then I want to invite you to pause and figure out how to do that. I'll put a little plug in here for me. I mean, this is one of the things I get to step into nonprofits and help do. I often do special consulting projects with nonprofits to take this pause and their strategic decision making to look at their effectiveness of what they're doing and the financial success, and to make those pivot decisions that really can set them up for a long-term success. So, a failure to adapt in your nonprofit, though, I want to remind you, it's going to result in those outdated programs that no longer resonate. And now all of a sudden, we're just doing what we've always done, but we're not actually meeting the people we want to serve. So, a nonprofit that doesn't strategically incorporate technology, for example, in their outreach office, might end up falling behind because they miss opportunities to engage with a younger generation. So, their social presence and their ability to get the message in front of those of the next generation could cause a nonprofit to fail to sustain itself long term. Another area is inefficient resource allocation. You know, nonprofits, especially the smaller ones, often operate with limited resources, and those resources can be limited in the way of money or funding. Maybe it's staffing, and just the time that's needed to make a nonprofit effective through the use of resources. Well, without a strategic decision-making process, and a nonprofit can actually allocate these things inefficiently. Maybe you've got two staff over here working on one program when the reality of it is you only need one and you should take that extra person over here. Or a better example, what if the way you're managing your business office is so manual and cumbersome that you've got so many staff doing that? And with the use of some really cool technology like Ramp, check out my video on that, you could actually repurpose some staff into some program and mission opportunities. Another area where I've seen nonprofits waste time and money is fundraising events. Sometimes a fundraising event is consuming all of their staff for 3 months, resulting in not serving clients or serving the mission and the programs. And then at the end of the day, when you measure it, the actual revenue gained from the event doesn't justify the return on investment. So, another area though is sometimes we hire staff or fund programs that aren't contributing to our goals, again, resulting in that financial instability and an ineffective use of our resources. So we just want to use strategic decision making to help prioritize and be really truthful to ourselves about what is being most impactful and what is ensuring that every dollar spent actually works to achieve our mission. All right. Well, I want to mention that I offer many amazing things. Today, I just want to get resources to you. And so, inside of my website, you can find a ton of tools and resources in the section called resources. And I just want to remind you, take a look over there and see if one of those is going to meet the need of right where you're at, and go ahead and grab it. It's for free. I've got a ton of great stuff there for you. The last thing I want to talk about is our failure to measure and really evaluate that success. Sometimes we can lie to ourselves and we say, look what we're doing. But reality of it is that we're not actually accomplishing what we want to, or even what we used to. So it's really important that you take time to regularly evaluate whether or not the path that you're on is actually effective and actually creating the measured impact that you want. Well, I want to encourage you that strategic decision making includes making sure that what you're doing is clear, that it is effective, and that it can continue to grow with you as you grow so that we don't hit that period and that place of decline. So this strategic decision making, it's a necessity. If you fail to do it, if you fail to have the deliberate and informed decisions that you need, your nonprofit is at risk of not fulfilling your mission or even not staying in operation. It's the worst case scenario, but I have seen way too much of it. That's why I'm talking to you about this today. So let's design and develop some strategic initiatives that help us to look at whether or not we're being effective, that help us to assess have we actually accomplished our mission? Are we allocating resources in a very effective way? Are they having an impact? Again, I just want to remind you, I have a lot of free tools. The one I want to highlight right now is that life cycle of a nonprofit. And it is a tool that will help you know and identify that there are strategic decisions needed in your organization. And it's an opportunity to turn those things into a reality. So, where you're watching, look for that download of the life cycles of a nonprofit worksheet. Until next time.